Sir, you're asking something, sir?
फर्नीचर रेडी है, तुम देख लो एक बार। You can touch it. ये वायरस से बिल्कुल सेफ है। मतलब सारा फर्नीचर सिर्फ सेंचुरी लैमिनेट्स और प्लाईवुड से बना है। इन दोनों में है वायरोक्रिल टेक्नोलॉजी, जिसके एक्टिवेटेड नैनो पार्टिकल्स वायरस को मार गिराते हैं। सेंचुरी लैमिनेट्स और सेंचुरी प्लाई, रहो बेफिक्र।
Stressed out, indecisive, and confused about your career? ECPT A120 Minutes, world's most technologically advanced career predictive test. IBM's AI and deep learning technology will match your skills and aptitude to over 1,400 careers. Get your career tested at ecptonline.com.
Huge and beautiful
फर्नीचर सिर्फ सेंचुरी लैमिनेट्स और प्लाईवुड से बना है।
to experiment, a lot to learn. 100% placement. Explore more, learn more, and play more.
Professor Shomit Ray, Chancellor of Adamas University.
Best faculties we have here.
I'm proud to be part of Adamas University.
Adamas University. Pursue excellence.
ভালো রোজগার, কাজের স্বীকৃতি, স্বপ্নের চাকরি, এগুলোর জন্য কি শুধুই কঠোর পরিশ্রম যথেষ্ট? না, এটা পড়াশোনা এবং প্রফেশনাল ট্রেনিং এর একটা কম্বিনেশন। তাই যে এমন একটি কলেজ বা ইউনিভার্সিটি যেটা এই দুটোরই গ্যারেন্টি দেয়, যেমন অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটি। এখানে ছাত্ররা শুধু পরীক্ষায় দারুণ নম্বরই নয়, সঙ্গে পায় দুর্দান্ত প্লেসমেন্ট এবং কর্মজীবনের প্রয়োজনীয় দক্ষতা। তাই আজই নিজেকে রেজিস্টার করো অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটির অ্যাডমিশন টেস্টে, আর এগিয়ে যাও একটা উজ্জ্বল ভবিষ্যতের দিকে।
Want a good job in a big city after college? Then don't skip this ad. For a great professional future, you need college education with hands-on training, smartness, and a network of talented friends. And you'll get it all at Adamas University. Professors at Adamas share their expert knowledge with students and also equip them with industry skills. Register now for Adamas University admission test and take the leap into a bright future.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are a $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Is about delivering excellence across business sectors. With community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
দিয়েছে ও দিয়েছে না মধু দিয়েছে ওরা বুঝবে আমাদের
फर्नीचर रेडी है, तुम देख लो एक बार।
कुछ डिस्टर्ब हो रहा?
You can touch it. ये वायरस से बिल्कुल सेफ है। मतलब सारा फर्नीचर सिर्फ सेंचुरी लैमिनेट्स और प्लाईवुड से बना है। इन दोनों में है वायरल टेक्नोलॉजी जिसके एक्टिवेटेड नैनो पार्टिकल्स वायरस को मार गिराते हैं। सेंचुरी लैमिनेट्स और सेंचुरी प्लाई, रहो बेफिक्र।
Are you stressed out, indecisive, and confused about your career? ECPT A120 Minutes, world's most technologically advanced career predictive test. IBM's AI and deep learning technology will match your skills and aptitude to over 1,400 careers. Get your career tested at ecptonline.com.
Huge and beautiful campus. A lot to explore, a lot to experiment, a lot to learn. 100% placement. Explore more, learn more, and play more.
Professor Shomi Praise, Chancellor of Adamas University.
Best faculties we have here.
I'm proud to be part of Adamas University.
Adamas University. Pursue excellence.
ভালো রোজগার, কাজের স্বীকৃতি, স্বপ্নের চাকরি, এগুলোর জন্য কি শুধুই কঠোর পরিশ্রম যথেষ্ট? না, এটা পড়াশোনা এবং প্রফেশনাল ট্রেনিং এর একটা কম্বিনেশন। তাই যে এমন একটি কলেজ বা ইউনিভার্সিটি যেটা এই দুটোরই গ্যারেন্টি দেয়, যেমন অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটি। এখানে ছাত্ররা শুধু পরীক্ষায় দারুণ নম্বরই নয়, সঙ্গে পায় দুর্দান্ত প্লেসমেন্ট এবং কর্মজীবনের প্রয়োজনীয় দক্ষতা। তাই আজই নিজেকে রেজিস্টার করো অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটির অ্যাডমিশন টেস্ট, আর এগিয়ে যাও একটা উজ্জ্বল ভবিষ্যতের দিকে।
Want a good job in a big city after college? Then don't skip this ad. For a great professional future, you need college education with hands-on training, smartness, and a network of talented friends. And you'll get it all at Adamas University. Professors at Adamas share their expert knowledge with students and also equip them with industry skills. Register now for Adamas University admission test and take the leap into a bright future.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Is about delivering excellence across business sectors. strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Is always about more than just a day. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
A very, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the annual Signature Summit by the Calcutta Management Association. This important conclave this year has been titled as the New Normal, Reimagining the Future. A huge thank you to all our sponsors for this edition and for all your great patronage. A very warm welcome to all our delegates, our esteemed speakers, event moderators, and most importantly, our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward to the very special inaugural ceremony, I would like to now invite Mr. Siddhartha Roy, former President CMA, requesting Mr. Siddhartha Roy for taking forward the program ahead. Mr. Roy, we'll request you to unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you, Shanchari. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Calcutta Management Association was born in 1957 to create a platform for the management community, where the most relevant and contemporary management ideas could be conceptualized, formulated, and shared to enable a dynamic business and economic development. As a premier management institution, it sets about to meet the challenges of continuously enriching and updating human capital. The Calcutta Management Summit, where we all are here today, started in 2011, building itself around the Jehangir Gandhi Memorial Oration, which was initiated in 2000 as a signature annual event of the CMA. The Calcutta Management Summit was inaugurated by none other than the former President of India, Dr. APJ Kalam, in the presence of His Excellency M.K. Narayan, the then Governor of West Bengal. Since then, the Calcutta Management Summit has become one of Kolkata's revered management gatherings. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day we have in front of us, listening to the luminaries of the business world, people who've chartered pioneering paths, people who've driven the destiny of many industries and organizations, people who've shown us that there are many ways of achieving unprecedented goals through thinking, agility, knowledge banking, technical superiority, unabated passion and compassion, and the famous do or die mantra. May I, on this note, invite Mr. Amitabh Dotto, President of CMA, which happens to be the oldest management association of the country, to formally inaugurate the Calcutta Management Summit. Mr. Dotto, please.
Thank you very much, Siddhartha. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Calcutta Management Summit. We are indeed grateful to all of you for being here today, and also to the eminent speakers from different parts of India and the world. The theme of this year's Calcutta Management Summit is the new normal, reimagining the future. Let us put things in perspective. After a decade of growth and everything seeming to be hunky-dory, we all of a sudden were confronted by the threat from a virus we had never encountered before. Over a period of time, the economy across the world took a drastic hit. Millions lost their jobs, and our lives changed entirely. We were unable to meet friends, family, relatives, clients, even if we were located in the same city. We were seeing high levels of pressure to work harder and longer, or we were suddenly without a job. For organizations in the initial stages, it was survival at any cost. This is almost like a heart attack in the middle of the night. The initial concern is to stabilize the patient and ensure immediate survival. After the emergency has passed, a high-stake, though somewhat less urgent set of challenges remain. Although the patient has survived this crisis, how does it prevent another attack? And how does he adapt to the changed circumstances? The crisis, therefore, is far from over. Similarly, in this case, the task of leading during the sustained crisis is treacherous. Crisis leadership has to deal with two distinct phases. The first is the emergency phase, where the task is to tide over the initial crisis and buy time. And the second is the adaptive phase, where one has to tackle the underlying causes of the crisis and take a hard look at the emerging environment and formulate strategies to thrive in the new reality. However, now that fortunately there seems to be a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, the total count seems to be reducing, mortality rates are decreasing, the protocols for treatment are getting better, and there is a likelihood of the vaccine being available in the near future, we will still possibly witness unprecedented new reality. We will witness a dramatic restructuring of the economic and the social order in which business and society have traditionally operated. And in the near future, we will see the beginning of discussion and debate about what the next normal could entail and how sharply its contours will diverge from those that previously shaped our lives. We are gathered here today, this morning, to hear our business leaders on how they would steer the companies and the economy through the fog of uncertainty, thinking about how to position themselves once the crisis has passed and things return to normal. The question is, what will the new normal look like? Let us therefore, without much delay, listen to the views of our esteemed panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new normal, reimagining the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dotto. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we are in the new normal, as Mr. Dotto just said. We are beginning to reimagine the future because the COVID-19 crisis has caused what I see as the great acceleration. It has intensified trends, widened the gap between those at the top and the bottom of the bar curve of economic profit. Will our strategies keep us ahead in the accelerated pace of change? In this, perhaps, a prescription for prosperity is prioritizing health. We need a healthy and sprightly society. We need medical solutions to fight the pandemic. The medical warriors are waging a tremendous war, and with a vaccine in the pipeline, there is a ray of hope around the corner. Therefore, it is time, or it has been time, to reinvent the organization, which must now set itself at a ready, set, go mode. We have to increase speed of decision-making while improving productivity using technology and data in new ways and accelerating the scope and scale of innovation. We need to quickly redeploy talent, launch new business models, develop new products, optimize operations. While doing that, we need to reimagine the office and work life. We need to reconstruct how work is done. Work from home, is it a future solution? How do people motivate, upgrade, and grow then? How do you optimize decision and operation efficiency? How do you decide people to work or work to people? Do you go fully remote? Are you on hybrid remote? Are you on-site? Are you hybrid on-site? You have to decide what is best and redeploy accordingly. It's a tough leadership test. CEOs have to cope with extraordinary demands. For them, the pandemic has been an ultimate leadership test, figuring out how to restart in an uncertain environment. CEOs are expected to show deliberate calm and bounded optimism. Everyone wants them to demonstrate empathy and at the same time be highly engaged in fact-based decisions and actions. When we return, we need to return with new muscle, not just a plan. Executives readily admit that it is tough to write a deterministic return plan because of the likelihood of a resurgence, discoveries about how the virus is transmitted, whom it affects, the nature and duration of immunity, the continued changes in quality and availability of testing and tracing. The best possible plan today is merely a straw man that will need near continuous recalibration and change. Experiments have happened, particularly in Silicon Valley, but there research found that among the top 15 firms, only 8% of employees work remotely. Customer behavior is the third unknown. Companies see a clear shift to digital, but it's unclear whether once the pandemic recedes, these customers will return to their old ways or if the pandemic will create new types of customers. To crushing the corona uncertainty, we need the big unlock for our economies. The choice of path depends greatly to a local context because we have to move from high infection rates to near zero virus situations, which is very hard and impossible in certain geographies. National and local authorities are in the best position to judge how realistic this could be. Governments have faced a challenging time. They have passed huge stimulus packages to support people and businesses, and these have heavily eroded public sector resources. But despite all this, some businesses and institutions are already on a forward mode. Speed and clarity are the only known vaccines against the coronavirus crisis. It is time for decisively moving on to the path of recovery. Ultimately, speed reduces uncertainty, which in turn will revive economic growth and lessen human suffering. From thinking about the next normal and how to make it work, we should think about what do we stop, what do we start, when do we accelerate? Do we continue to have a sleeping office or move to effective remote working? Let's stop assuming that the old days will come back. We should begin to accelerate best practices around collaboration, flexibility, inclusion, and accountability. These are what organizations possibly need to address and redefine now. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now have the pleasure of inviting my colleague and former president of CMA, Mr. Sumit Ray, to take over the inaugural session of the Calcutta Management Summit. Sumit.
Thank you, Siddhartha. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the inaugural session of the Calcutta Management Summit 2020. It is my proud honor and privilege to formally introduce our speaker for the inaugural session, a gentleman who perhaps needs no introduction, a man whose vision put India on the global map, a man who is responsible for opening up a sector that is now one of the fastest growing in the Indian economy. A man who has created wealth for all stakeholders, a man who personifies simple living, high thinking. The founder of India's most respected new age organization, Infosys, Mr. Narayan Murthy. Infosys is today a highly innovative software services global company listed on the New York Stock Exchange in the US and on the Bombay Stock Exchange in Mumbai, with over US 12 billion in revenue and about US 62 billion in market capitalization. Mr. Murthy conceptualized, articulated, and implemented the Global Delivery Model, GDM, which has become the backbone of the Indian software industry. GDM is based on collaborative distributed software development principles and has resulted in the delivery of superior quality software to global customers delivered on time and within budget. Mr. Murthy also introduced the concept of 24-hour workday to the world. Under Mr. Murthy's leadership, Infosys became the leader in innovation in technical, managerial, and leadership training, software technology, quality, productivity, customer focus, employee satisfaction, and physical and technological infrastructure. In 2014, Mr. Murthy was ranked 13th among CNBC's 25 global business leaders and listed among the 12 greatest entrepreneurs of our time by Fortune in 2012. He has received the Legion d'Honneur from France, the CBE from Britain, and the Padma Vibhushan from India. The Economist ranked him among the 10 most admired global business leaders in 2005. Mr. Murthy is ranked among the top 10 on the Financial Times list of business pioneers in technology published in March 2015. He is the first Indian winner of the Ernst & Young's World Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Mr. Murthy was elected as a member of the prestigious American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2019. He is a foreign member of the US National Academy of Engineering and a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering. He received the Founders Medal in 2018, the Hoover Medal in 2012, and the Ernst Weber Medal in 2007, all three from the IEEE. He has received the Thomas Jefferson Medal and the James C. Morgan Global Humanitarian Award. Currently, Mr. Murthy serves on the boards of the Institute of Advanced Study at Princeton, New Jersey, and the United Nations Foundation. He has served on the boards of Ford Foundation in New York, HSBC, and Unilever in London. He is a member of the advisory board of the University of Tokyo, Japan, the ESSEC Business School, France, the IESE Business School in Spain, the FDC School in Brazil. He's also a member of the Board of Governors and Trustees of the Asian Institute of Management, Manila. He has served as a member of the boards of various well-known universities in the US, like Cornell University, Wharton School, the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University, and the Rhodes Trust at Oxford. He was the chairman of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, the #1 business school in India, and the Public Health Foundation of India. He has also served on the international advisory boards of Yale University, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, the William F. Ackmeyer Center for Global Leadership at the Tuck School of Business, Singapore Management University, INSEAD, Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and the International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. He's married. His wife, Sudha, is a well-known author, and they both have 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Narayan Murthy.
Thank you, Shomit. Thanks to the organizers. Thanks to every one of you for this opportunity to address the corporate leaders, managers, and management students of Calcutta. I believe that the only way India can solve the problem of poverty is by reducing unemployment and by creating a large number of jobs with good income. You people are the prime movers of this task. You do this by creating a globally competitive corporation in India. It doesn't matter whether it was the past normal, new normal, pandemic, no pandemic, doesn't matter what it is. But your objective will have to be to create a globally competitive corporation operating out of India. What are the attributes of such a corporation? Let me spend a little bit of time talking about it. The first and the foremost is the desire to earn respect from every stakeholder of the corporation. That is, from customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, government of the land, and the society. Of these, the most important stakeholder is the society, since the society contributes customers, employees, investors, and vendor partners. Society also contributes bureaucrats and politicians. If you earn the respect of the society, then you will attract good customers, good employees, long-term investors, and you will be able to create enduring relationships with vendor partners, bureaucrats, and politicians will be comfortable in dealing with you and will create policies conducive to the growth of your company if you are a respected corporation. How does your company earn respect from the society? It is simple. Before taking any decision, ask whether your decision will make the society a better place. That means you should not play a zero-sum game with the society, whether it is by gouging the customers, by shortchanging your employees, by using corporate resources for your personal benefits, by creating asymmetry of benefits vis-a-vis minority shareholders, by cheating the government on taxes, or by creating externalities like polluting our rivers, our environment, or taking away a disproportionate part of common goods like water for producing your product. Over a period of time, your actions on these principles will speak louder than your words, and your community will start respecting you. Your company should focus on good governance if you want respect from your stakeholders. Good governance is about deciding to do the right and respectable things, while good management is about doing that right thing well. Good corporate governance is about creating sustained competitive differentiation in the marketplace to maximize the shareholder value legally, ethically, and on a sustainable basis while ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability to every stakeholder of your company. That is, to your customers, your employees, your investors, your vendor partners, your government of the land, and your community. Governance is a reflection of the culture and the values of a company's board and management. Good governance in a company enhances joy, confidence, trust, and enthusiasm of its stakeholders. The primary functions of a corporate board include ensuring a robust quality growth of both the top line and the bottom line of the company, protecting and enhancing the reputation of the company, reviewing, critiquing, and improving the strategy presented by the management, setting clear KPIs for the CXOs and other officers of the company, recommending a fair and performance-based compensation to the CXOs and other officers of the company, and after obtaining the approval of the shareholders, creating a succession plan for the CXOs and key officers of the company, identifying risks and taking timely action to mitigate those risks, putting in place a system of information control, checks and balances, and ensuring that these systems are secure and they are working properly, ensuring full compliance of the regulations required by every statutory authority of the land, getting capital and revenue budgets prepared and approved after informed discussions, applying mind, reviewing, and modifying if necessary, and finally approving acquisitions, bonds, debt issues, mergers, dividends, rights issues, bonus shares, and buyback of shares proposed by the management, addressing shareholder grievances in a fair and transparent manner, and installing a robust whistleblower policy and ensuring the proper functioning to address the complaints of whistleblowers. There are three key players in a corporate governance system: the shareholders or the owners of the company, in proportion to the number of voting shares they hold in the company. The board of directors is responsible for the governance of the company. The board oversees the management. The board is appointed by the shareholders and is therefore accountable solely to the shareholders. The CXOs and other executive officers form the management of the company. They run the business and report the performance of the company to the shareholders periodically through the board of directors. The primary corporate governance problem is to minimize agency costs. Agency cost is the cost incurred by the management to achieve the objectives of the company as defined by the shareholders. Agency costs tend to be inflated due to the divergence of interest between the management on the one hand and the shareholders on the other hand. In the so-called professional managed companies, such costs manifest as the propensity of management leaders to wring out of a weak and pusillanimous board unusually high and unjustifiable compensation for themselves, and to violate the company rules, to use the company's resources for their personal benefits and for their personal comforts. In the case of the so-called promoter-managed companies, this problem generally manifests as the asymmetry of benefits created by these owner-managers in their favor and against the interest of other shareholders. A typical example of this would be the use of the assets of a listed company owned partially by an owner-manager to fund the growth of a private company held wholly or to a large extent by the owner-manager, his or her family, and his or her friends. This is generally called a related party transaction. That is, conducting a company's financial transactions with either a senior management staff or his or her relatives and friends. Generally, such transactions result in inflated costs and result in financial damages to the company and favor the other party in the transaction. The duty of a board is to apply their mind and prevent such transactions. The four most KPIs of a company in our country at this point of time, or for that matter, any point of time, should be the maximization of per capita after-tax income generated, the number of jobs created, the compensation of the lowest level employee in your company, and the per capita net export income generated by your company. Your company exists to satisfy your customers. As Sam Walton once said, without a customer, there is no company. Therefore, you must remember that there is no company without customers. Your responsibility is to attract the maximum number of customers from the marketplace. Therefore, the primary responsibility of a good company is to embrace competition, learn from the marketplace, and create the best and next practices on a global basis in every function of the company to become the market leader on a global basis. Economists say that a buyer receives value from the seller and the seller receives money from the buyer in any market transaction. Being the best in the industry on a global basis means delivering the best value per rupee paid by your customers. This helps the companies to in fact enhance their prices too. Therefore, by enhancing the value that your customer receives from you and ensuring that value over price ratio is higher than any of your competitors, you have an opportunity to increase the denominator, which is the price. And therefore, there will be two winners in this game, your customers and your company. This is a win-win solution, therefore, for both the customer and your own company. Now let me come to employees. Employees are the most important assets of any corporation because they bring innovation through the power of human mind. Competence and values are the true metrics of a good employee. That's why the Infosys byline used to be driven by intellect and driven by values. It is the responsibility of the corporation to ensure that every employee has pride in working for your company. It is the responsibility of your corporation to ensure that the confidence, enthusiasm, pride, hope, and satisfaction of every employee is high in the fairness, transparency, and accountability of every decision taken by the company. In fact, your biggest challenge is to attract, enable, empower, and retain the best and the brightest employees. Any company that has managed to do it will succeed, not just in the Indian marketplace, but in the global marketplace too. In order to enhance the confidence of your employees in the company, you have to embrace meritocracy in hiring employees. You have to clearly define the job profile, clearly define the KPIs, and clearly define the growth path for their advancement in the years to come in your company. You have to ensure that every decision taken about them is based on data and facts and not opinions and biases. That is why I always say, in God we trust. Everybody else brings data to the table. You have to protect the dignity and respect of every employee, from the janitor to the senior most officer. All your doors must always be open. If you are free, anybody should be in a position to walk into your office and talk to you. Many of my international friends tell me that the productivity of Indian workforce is behind that of the workers of many other nations. Work productivity is one important component of revenue productivity. You know it better than I do. So please benchmark the work productivity of your people with the work productivity of employees of the best global company in your area, in your sector, and make sure that the work productivity of your employees comparable or in fact better than the global best company first, and then you try and make it so much better than your competitor. Provide your employees with whatever technology and whatever facilities they want to improve their work productivity. At the end of the day, as I told you before, if you improve their work productivity, then their revenue productivity will improve, their quality will improve, their rework will reduce, and your profits will reduce. Therefore, work productivity is extremely important. Now let me come to investors. Investors have trusted your company and put in their hard-earned money in your company. So transparency is very, very important when dealing with investors, particularly when an item of bad news is concerned. My own experience tells me that investors understand that every company, no matter how great it is, no matter how much of longevity it has shown, will have ups and downs from time to time. That is, after all, part of the business cycle. However, what they want you to do is to level with them, be honest with them, be transparent with them at all points of time. That's why I believe in the adage, let the good news take the stairs, but ensure that the bad news always takes the elevator. Finally, remember that you own a huge responsibility to export a lot, create good jobs, and to reduce poverty in our country. That can only happen if you keep these three objectives in big letters on your table in the office. Higher salary for the lowest level employee, more and more jobs, better and better exports. These are the three mantras. The moment you want better and better exports, then your work productivity has to be better, your quality has to be better, your innovation has to be better, your employees have to work smarter. Everything takes care of if you focus on exports. I have no doubt at all that you will succeed in your endeavor to remove unemployment from India and in the process make your company the most respected and the most successful company. I always say performance leads to recognition, recognition leads to respect, and respect leads to power. Therefore, if you want to be seen as a powerful company on the global scene, if you want to be in the high table at Davos or any other multinational platforms, there is only one vaccine. There is only one solution, and that is performance. I hope every Indian will understand that just talking big words is not what is going to give us respect, what is going to give us power. Performance. We have seen other countries which were like India have gone on to become number 2, number 3 economies in the world. That happened only because they enhanced their exports, they became much more prosperous, and therefore everybody respected. So therefore, please keep that performance is the only antidote you have for deriving respect, not just in India, not just in Calcutta, but everywhere in the world, and kindly do everything necessary to make sure that you become the best performing company on a global basis. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am very, very grateful to you people for this extraordinary opportunity to speak to you all. My best wishes to everybody in Calcutta. It's a great city. It has a great history. And therefore, Calcutta deserves to be the best performing city in the world. Definitely in India, but once upon a time, it was one of the best known cities in the world. And that task of making Calcutta one of the best known cities in the world is entirely in the hands of you people. Kindly seize that opportunity and make sure that Calcutta regains its rightful place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murthy. That was a very, very enlightening deliberation from you. Thank you for your time. And thank you for sharing with us that whether the new normal, old normal, whatever normal, taking us through the fundamentals of what a good organization, a valued organization is all about. Taking us at this time when we are grappling with so many challenges to take us through the basics to create a globally competitive corporation from India which creates employment. Taking us through some of the parameters of what a good governance should be, the roles of board of directors, are the company's attitude towards its customers, to its stakeholders, to its employees, and leaving us with this wonderful adage that in God we trust and everyone brings data to the table. And I think in a time like this, looking at data and then taking decisions becomes so critical and not go by rumors and biases. Also taking us through this very important, because in this panic situation and challenge, to always remember that good news must take the stairs and the bad news takes the elevator. And above all, giving us the biggest advice with your wisdom, experience, and your knowledge that the only antidote and the vaccine, even in times like this, is performance. And I think all our managers, senior leaders, corporate leaders who are with us have really benefited from your talk, have relooked at the fundamentals of what you had put in place to have created a global organization like Infosys. And even in times and challenges like this, we will look to you, be inspired by you, sir, to do something for our companies, for our country, and ensure that we will put it back in its right place. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you very much. And over to you, Siddhartha, back to you.
Thank you, Shumit. That was indeed a wonderful and visionary session we just experienced. There was lots to learn, lots to take home, lots to ruminate. And thank you so much, Mr. Murthy. Thank you, Shumit. And while Mr. Murthy spoke, it reminded me of a little story that I've heard from NASA. It shows the purpose of an organization when in 1962, President John F. Kennedy visited NASA and he spoke to a janitor whom he met. And he asked the janitor, "What do you do?" The janitor said, "Sir, I train people to go to the moon." And that sums up what an organization should be. May I now have the pleasure of calling upon Mr. TVS Shenoy, Vice President of CMA, to introduce the Jehangir Gandhi Memorial Oration. TVS, please.
Good morning, Siddhartha, and thank you, Mr. Narayan Murthy. What a fabulous session we have had. But from a person who has not only lived his talk, but walked his talk as well. Well, for all the people who have joined in here, from the corporates, from an employee, from an employer, fantastic but simple, powerful mantras, as Sumit superbly summed up. But now what promises to be another exciting session, full of imagination of what the new normal could be. I'm TVS Shenoy, the Vice President of the Calcutta Management Association, and it's my pleasure to moderate the 20th Sir Jehangir Gandhi Memorial Oration. But before we step into the oration, it's time for us to pay respect to the great Sir Jehangir Gandhi, a visionary born in 1896, knighted in 1945, and awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1958. He has been one of the chief architects in building Tata Steel in Jamshedpur, and I request the team to play the AV of Sir Jehangir Gandhi, please.
Sir Jehangir Gandhi, born on November 18th, 1896 at Bombay. Sir Jehangir Gandhi took his BA Honours in Physics and Chemistry from St. Xavier's College and Wilson's College, Bombay. He completed his postgraduate studies in Business Administration at Columbia University, New York, and in Metallurgical and Steelworks Engineering at the Carnegie Institute of Technology, Pittsburgh. In 1921, he joined the Tata Steelworks as a metallurgical engineer. His meteoric rise saw him being appointed General Manager in 1938. He was the first Indian to hold this position. As General Manager, he was instrumental in cutting down costs, eliminating waste, and steering the steelworks successfully through the Great Depression of the 1930s. In 1945, he was appointed Director in charge of Tata Steel. A more significant recognition of his outstanding ability came in 1959, when he was appointed a Director of Tata Sons, the parent firm controlling the Tata Group of companies. He was also the Chairman of the Indian Tube Company and a Director of Indian Tinplate Company of India Limited. Besides steel and engineering industries, Sir Gandhi's activities covered a wide-ranging field. Recognition of his professional ability and his broad vision as a technocrat came from both within and outside the country. He was called upon by the Government of India to help in the country's industrial and steel development plans. He was also involved in working out blueprints for the designing of modern management and technical education in the country. He was the chairman of the committee appointed by the government whose recommendation led to the foundation of both the Indian Institute of Technology and the Administrative Staff College, Hyderabad. Sir Jehangir Gandhi was the president of the Board of Governors of the Xavier Labour Relations Institute, Jamshedpur. In fact, it was he who conceived the idea of the institute and was deeply involved in its working in progress since it was set up in 1942. As Vice President of the Acharya Jagdish Bose Centenary Committee, he initiated in 1960 a scheme of science talent search, now widely known as Jagdish Bose National Science Talent Search Scholarship. The Calcutta Management Association was founded under his leadership in 1957. In 1945, he was conferred the knighthood. He was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1958 for his outstanding contribution towards the industrial development of India. In 1964, he was invited by Columbia University to accept at a special convocation the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws. Sir Jehangir, a leader, a visionary, and a technocrat extraordinary.
Well, Sir Jehangir Gandhi was a true legend indeed. Well, the time has come now for us to listen to the oration, and who better than another Tata stalwart to deliver the same. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Rajiv Sabharwal, the MD and CEO of Tata Capital. But before I introduce Mr. Sabharwal, I'd like to share with you the brief resume about what Mr. Sabharwal is all about. Mr. Sabharwal, a BTech from IIT Delhi and a PGDM from IIM Lucknow, has over 26 years of experience in the banking and financial services industry. Mr. Sabharwal is currently the Managing Director and CEO of Tata Capital Limited. He's also the Chairman of Tata Capital Financial Services Limited, Tata Capital Housing Finance Limited, and Tata Securities Limited, and is also on the board of Tata Capital Clean Tech Limited, Tata Realty and Infrastructure Limited. He has served as Executive Director on board of ICICI Bank, where he was responsible for several businesses, including retail banking, business banking, rural banking, financial inclusion, technology, and digital banking. He has also served as the chairman of ICICI Home Finance Company Limited and was on the board of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance Company Limited. Mr. Sabharwal has been acknowledged for his contribution to the growth of the retail banking and real estate and housing finance market in India. Mr. Sabharwal has had experience in both venture capital and growth capital, investing at Secure Capital and True North, He has been on the board of a number of early stage and growing companies of financial services space. He has also served on a number of committees of RBI and IPA. But before I hand it over to Mr. Sabharwal, a few mandatory announcements. I see plenty of our people who are connected through YouTube, through Facebook, through Zoom. And for all of those who would like to post questions, please post your questions on the chat box. There's a team collating all the feedback from all the three areas which are being broadcast live. And if any of them have any, we would kind of relay it back to Mr. Sabharwal at the end of the session. I present you Mr. Rajiv Sabharwal.
Thank you, Mr. Shinoy. Thank you for the introduction. Let me first welcome everyone who's joined this session. I'd like to thank the Calcutta Management Association, along with Mr. Amitabh Datta, for inviting me for this day with the Oration. It's a tough act to follow Mr. Narayan Murthy. It's always a pleasure to listen to him, for he packages the fruits of his vast experience with admirable simplicity. I treasure each interaction with him. Today, it's my honor and privilege to speak at the 20th Sir Jehangir Gandhi Memorial Oration. Sir Jehangir Gandhi is a stalwart of the Tata Group and a stalwart for the whole country. He was a Padma Bhushan awardee and recipient of many other marks of distinction. Here is a sampler of the first speech associated with. He was the first general manager of Cisco. As a technocrat, he was among the first to recognize the need for adopting standards and achieving standardization in the Indian industry. In JRD's words, he is the man who did more for Jamshedpur than any other person, laying secure foundations on which most of the Jamshedpur companies rose to their present size and stage. This very individual also was the founder president of Calcutta Management Association. As we partake in the fruits of his labor, let me take a moment to pay tribute to him. Today, I intend talking about the new normal reimagining the future. My speech will address the acceptance of COVID as a reality. I will then present historical precedents for our country's eventual recovery. Finally, I will propose a path that we can walk together and make this promise of recovery a reality. At the crux of the mantra, it's all about recover, rebuild, and reimagine. These are truly unprecedented times. I remember the economy was getting back in good shape last financial year, and we were seeing green shoots of growth with our economy on the mend and recovering from a series of market events. There was a huge sense of optimism across the board. However, at that time, towards the end of the year, the pandemic started and it gained foothold in every nation. The financial year opened to a near complete shutdown of all businesses and operations. Panic and fear took over our minds. The mass media brought in much more anxiety. Its impact over the next few months was anybody's guess. Over time, anxiety has turned into acceptance. People, as well as businesses, are taking steps to restore normalcy, while COVID-19 continues to grow around us. We are seeing a consistent rise in infection across the globe. And as a matter of fact, there are many countries who are facing a second wave which is much stronger than the first. Worldwide cases stand at over 55 million, with India next only to the US at 9 million. COVID-19 has had a far-reaching impact on the growth across all economies. IMF's World Economic Outlook, as on October 20, projects global growth to fall by 4.4% in 2020. If you look at the projected numbers for USA, it's negative 4.3. Japan is at negative 5.3. EU seems bleak at 8.3%, with the UK close to negative 10%. Persistent social distancing and stalled reopening weigh heavily on the outlook. Back home in India, when we look at the projections in Q1 when the pandemic actually started, it showed a grim picture with the economy contracting anywhere between 9 to 10%. We have seen the numbers for the first quarter where the economy contracted at over 20%. This number has fallen down in Q2. It was expected that in the best case, GDP growth may take a positive turn by the fourth quarter of 2020. However, our resilience has helped us bounce back faster and also with a vengeance. The economic impact of COVID is fading fast, though the COVID numbers are rising. We hope to see positive growth, not in Q4, but now we are expecting to see positive growth in this quarter, in quarter 3 of 2021. And it's all thanks to the role which is being played by the government and all regulators working in tandem. I think we as an economy saw a pretty quick response in all the right areas being put in by our government as well as the regulators. Today, when we talk about the difficult times which we are facing today, we should not remember that we've had and have seen these phases earlier also in our lifetime. The Asian financial crisis of the late 90s, the global meltdown in the 2007-2008, and to an extent, the demonetization. We saw all of these. Our economy has time and again shown the ability to stand up and move forward. In each of these incidents, the bounce back started in a couple of quarters and we matched a projected growth rate in 4 to 5 quarters. The same seems to be happening now. History seems to be repeating itself. From the time the pandemic started, we are seeing a bounce back already. It took us about a couple of quarters to bounce back, and I believe in the next 2 quarters, when we open into the next financial year, we will see growth coming back. In fact, the belief is this, that the next year we will grow in somewhere close to double-digit numbers. When we look at different sectors in the economy, these sectors are facing the impact of COVID in different ways. We can classify sectors of the Indian economy into 4 buckets based on their vulnerability. Some have seen growth despite the pandemic, while others have seen business really come down to a standstill. There are the unharmed sectors. These comprise of the retail, food and drug industry, pharma, healthcare, telecom, agriculture, digital media, online education, and so on. This category enjoys a unique positioning because of its offerings. Obviously, they have the opportunity to thrive and even expand as the demand remains unaffected or has even increased for some of them. Then there are the relatively insulated ones. These include IT, technology, energy and utilities, oil and gas, insurance. All these industries saw a demand which got muted when the pandemic started, but the recovery was quick. This sector will have minimal impact on their performance numbers when we close this financial year. Then we have what we call as a sector which is seeing a V-shaped recovery. This includes financial services, transportation and logistics, aerospace and defense, metals and mining, construction, building materials, chemicals, machinery, auto components, and also consumer durables. These companies typically have leveraged balance sheets wherein a slowdown creates immediate liquidity and P&L strain. However, we are seeing that the stronger ones in these sectors have bounced back to the V-shaped recovery and will come back to normalcy by the time we close this year. In fact, some of the companies in this sector may gain market share at the expense of the weaker ones. Lastly, we have sectors that have been hit the hardest, what we are today calling them as structurally challenged ones. The companies here include companies in travel and tourism, hospitality, offline and education, fashion, luxury. The pandemic seems to have disrupted the business model, wherein there is a demand collapse and it's difficult to predict the level or the timing of recovery. It is thus extremely important that these companies rediscover themselves and establish new ways of existence. The key at this point of time is to remain afloat, and as recovery may take a little longer, to keep resources in place so that they can bounce back when things become better. Though this virus is stubborn, I think the human resilience is even tougher. It's very important to fight it on our terms and ensure that ensure that we advance and we lay down the rules on the way the future will be. The approach to usher in the new normal phase could be in 3 steps: to recover, rebuild, and reimagine. When we talk about recover, it's about safeguarding our interests in terms of people and operations and recovering from the lows. When we talk about rebuilding, it's about managing the in-between phase of rebuilding what's lost and broken. And this is something which we are going through. And then reimagining. It's about reimagining the business and operating models to reach the desired growth strategy again. I have tried to list down 10 action points which businesses need to look at. These are all drawn from our own experience as well as by looking at what others are doing. When we look at these points, we will realize that all companies need to work on all of these points. It's possible that for some of the points may be more relevant than the others, but I think all of these points apply to all the companies. First, it's about revisiting your priorities, replanning and rebudgeting. Business volumes still remain severely impacted due to localized containment and social distancing norms. The increasing numbers are not helping. In fact, some cities are doing some shutdowns in specific areas or at specific times. Businesses need to revisit their priorities. They need to replan and reallocate resources for each change. They need to relook at budgets and reset the path for the short term and the medium term. There needs to be an effort to conserve resources and to be ready to grow once the situation improves. For example, when you look at the industry to which I belong, the financial services industry, the firms have had to revisit, replan and rebudget. At first due to the pandemic and thereafter due to the moratoriums affecting the collection cycle. And then we had more regulations which were changing in relating to restructuring and so on. And the whole situation changed, and that led to complete replanning. When we looked at a year back when budgets were being made, it was more about liability challenges for certain firms. It was not about asset growth, it was more about liability. And then it all changed completely. Money was available in abundance, the cost was low, but it was difficult to find good assets. And today, in the short run, it's not about growth, it's about giving priority to asset quality to ensure that the asset quality remains pristine. Similarly, when you look at the real estate sector, companies have had to prioritize across all 6 C's: customers, cities, capital, cash in hand, costs, as well as credibility. Companies are deferring launches and prioritizing completion of projects. There was a time when people wanted to launch more projects. Today, that's not the priority. Rather than margins, it's about cash flows. It's not about premium projects which can get you more money. It's about projects which can sell faster, houses which are ready to move in, and so on. Today, it's more about virtual visits rather than physical visits. In fact, most of the initial search is happening virtually, which is then leading to physical visits. Similarly, if you look at the power and transport companies, the first few months of the pandemic had a significant impact due to the demand pattern, with most of the companies shutting down their offices. Power companies had to revisit their capacity planning as well as had to rework their cash flow situation. With lockdowns, the transport sector too was compelled to rework their priorities. In fact, there was a time when intercity movement was not allowed and people had to work on essential commodities within the city itself. The second point is about managing cost and closely and cutting down on non-essentials. This is extremely important. There is a need to closely monitor the costs, trim down wherever possible, and pause on what is considered as non-essentials. While most companies have been forced to bring down costs, both structural and variable, it needs to be treated as an opportunity to relook at the operating model and cost structures. Today, it's not only about reducing costs, because since business models are changing, the need to bring about these changes quickly is extremely essential. For example, if you look at Shell, when COVID struck, they had set themselves a target of bringing down costs by 4 billion. And this was under a project called Reshape. However, besides that, they have decided to cut down on the cost of production of oil and gas by 40%. And it's not just to save costs, it's about being able to run businesses at lower costs. And this is becoming even more important because the company wants to get into new areas which may not have the same margins as their existing business. So it's imperative for them to learn to work with lower costs because the margins in their newer businesses may be much lower. Even in the airline sector, which has been hit hard due to the lower domestic traffic as well as international travel restrictions, full-service carriers are learning how to act like low-cost cousins, cutting costs through network rehauls as well as scheduling changes, while at the same time working towards slashing operational costs significantly. The Japanese airline Tata is planning to launch each a low-cost model. Southwest is quickly adding short-haul locations to places where it was not flying before, because it is looking at traffic which is, which is today in demand between those locations. Similarly, auto sector companies have also initiated aggressive cost-cutting program, including cut in capital expenditure so as to support profitability amidst uncertainty. In the initial months of the pandemic, auto plants across the country were running at capacities which were 50% lower than what they were before. There were supply chain and manpower related issues too. And in all of them, they realized the need to aggressively look at reducing costs. The third point is about rebuilding for speed. Speed is a must for both decisions and action. Rework, rebuild, aim for speed. Companies which acted fast were able to get back on their feet better than others. Flatter structures and focused implementation goes a long way in ensuring speed becoming integral to the culture of the organization. If you would remember, airlines used to spend years on analyzing data and deciding to enter into new routes. The same is being decisioned today in days. Decision to collaborate on routes across airlines is happening much faster than what it used to happen. Even if you look at Zomato, in the initial pandemic period, it quickly decided to start grocery delivery services in over 50 cities. If you look at Uber Eats now forms an important part of the overall Uber strategy and is helping them at this point of time where travel restrictions are more. Similarly, a lot of organizations who preferred in-person meetings for most important decisions now in the new normal have adopted virtual workspace solutions within a matter of days. This has greatly helped accelerate decision-making without enduring any logistical nightmares. Fourth point is about rethinking footprint. Marking new territories, revisiting existing territories, and taking a deep look at what the market needs. Because the needs have changed, and it's important to cater to the changed market dynamics. The supply chain management process also has got altered. The chain needs to be adapted, and that too quickly. Even business partners, be it clients or vendor ecosystem, have changed, and businesses have to change too. Business continuity and not just costs for both upstream and downstream should be the top agenda item for most of the companies. For example, in the fast fashion sector, the pandemic has forced retailers to rethink the manufacturing bases and potentially involve more local manufacturing to ensure sustainable sourcing. It's not about cost alone, it's about sustainability of supplies. And that's the reason the whole model is being rethought. Businesses are realizing they can't put all eggs in one basket. I remember companies realized that you couldn't be dependent on a single principle because the priorities of the principles may change. Another sector that saw significant impact was auto, which we've all seen, where manufacturers worked on rehauling their supply chains to ease dealer inventory woes. 80% of the dealers' working capital was in the past blocked towards inventory financing. The dealers used to carry stock for 60 to 90 days. It's now being cut down to a much shorter period, where dealers carry much lesser number of units, focusing more on fast-moving models. There was news that 3 Apple top contract manufacturers plan to invest $1 billion in India in the next 5 years to tap into the new production-linked incentive scheme. The scheme offers companies cash incentives on any increase in sales of locally made smartphones over the next 5 years compared with 2019. If this is successful, and I'm sure it will be, this has potential to disrupt the supply chain footprint and project India as a major exporting hub. In fact, today, India exports more phones than it imports, a sea change from what it was some time back. The fifth point is about turbocharging the tech build-out, digitizing and automating. And this was referred to in the early part of today's inauguration too. The pandemic has actually helped businesses unleash the true potential of technology. Digitization is inevitable, and the sooner companies realize this, the better will it be. The right investments will yield results to smooth sail these times. Freeing up repetitive tasks and letting these tasks be automated is extremely important. There is a need to focus on higher productivity and efficiency. Technology, along with digitization and automation, is set to remain the cornerstone of success. Most companies would admit that they have covered more ground in terms of tech build-out and adoption in the last 6 months than in the last 2-3 years. I can give you an example of our company. The amount of innovation and new product launches we have had in the last 6 months since the pandemic started is more than what we did in the last 2.5 years. In fact, as per a leading consulting firm's latest report, this pandemic has accelerated digitization of customer interactions by a minimum of 3-4 years, and the share of digital products by over 7 years. So what was expected in terms of digital adoption over the next 6-7 years has now happened during this time. And changes seem to be more permanent this time, as shifting to default is either not feasible or not affordable. This was coupled with a similar acceleration in the digitization of both internal operations, such as the back office production and R&D processes and interactions with their supply chains across industries. The sixth point is to keep in touch with the new normal customers. Today, companies need to adopt a far more empathetic customer approach than ever before. Our most valued stakeholder today needs to be cared for, and we have to be available at all points of time. Mr. Narayan Murthy also referred to this in his earlier part.
Thank you.
Listening, understanding, and meeting their expectations, whether spelled out or latent, is extremely important. Moreover, less touch is also an integral part of good customer experience. One of our leading Tata Group companies, Titan, has used this as an opportunity to create new customer journeys combining digital and physical experience, by which customers can discover, engage with merchandising experts, and buy digitally. After viewing the products virtually and making a short list of products, customers can request an appointment in a nearby retail store, spending less time in a safe environment. And all of this is possible because of the digital platforms. While augmented reality is improving customer experience, virtual reality is ensuring safety. In the education space as well, Schools and colleges have been quick to adopt digital platforms with a combination of innovative teaching methods. This ensures that students continue their learning, albeit from a distance, limiting the pandemic's impact. We've really seen the changes which have happened in EdTech in our homes too. If you look at the way the tests are being conducted, the way education is happening, it's amazing to see how, while remaining safe, we can ensure that the learning continues to happen. Another example that comes to my mind is the recent launch by Taj Hotels of gourmet food delivery platform Human, where customers can order from iconic and celebrated restaurants of Taj, Vivanta selections from the comfort and convenience of their homes. Given the fact that a large number of customers may not want to step outside for a leisure lunch or dinner, the company chose to adopt to the new normal customers. 7. It's about reimagining work, workplace, and workforce. This year has been a year of the unimaginable. We are working remotely and yet so efficiently. The workplace is a different place. The way we work now is far more empowering. We can work from anywhere at any point of time. We need to create workplaces that will keep our people. Even employees, the workforce, is becoming far more responsible. Not only are they concerned, but they are showing far more care for the organization and their colleagues. It's important to look at all of them, whether it is work, whether it's workforce. Even things are changing on the workforce side because we're looking at because the nature of hiring is changing. And then the workplace. How do we ensure that we optimize workspace? Because we need to spend more time while working from home. Microsoft is now allowing more of its employees to work from home permanently under the new hybrid workplace guidance, which shall allow for far greater flexibility once US offices eventually open. If you look at within India, even companies like Tata Projects, where one wouldn't have imagined because they are in a space where they need to be in contact with each other. They are looking at 70% of their workforce not being in office. So it is not only the need of the hour. I think new business models are getting discovered by companies at this point of time. 8th point is about reskilling, relearning, which is the key to adapting to the new normal. Nurturing skills to cater to the new world order is not an option anymore. Investing in oneself for self-growth and the growth of the organization has to go hand in hand. One silver lining that we can harness now is that learning, like the way we work, can be done at any time at one's own convenience. The world is one's oyster. Learn, relearn, and keep evolving to stay valuable. Darwinian theory of survival of the fittest has never been more relevant. At our company, even before the pandemic, we ensured that our team members upskill from time to time, and that too across grades. From short-term offline courses to a series of online courses, our employees seized the opportunity to add value. And now in these times, COVID has only reinforced in our people the importance of learning at all points of time. And when you open these digital platforms, what we are also realizing that there were certain hidden talents and hidden desires of individuals to learn, which are coming out in the open. And we are seeing far more passion being brought by them, not only in learning, but in then deploying those learnings in everyday work life. The 9th point is about the opportunity to make bold bets, buyouts, sale, or even highlights. Unprecedented times call for extraordinary opportunities as well. Seeking those bold prospects can prove to be a game changer. This is the time. Futuristic companies, while safeguarding the present, are acting proactively to reach their business portfolio. In fact, in certain sectors, the valuations may just be ripe for takeovers. These companies read the situation better than the others, and they make bold bets, right from buyouts to augmenting the portfolio to hive-offs and outright sale of non-core business. Chevron, for example, is taking over Noble Energy for over $5 billion, the first ever deal announced since the pandemic shook the energy sector. As quoted, the acquisition is expected to bring geographical diversity, increase capital flexibility, and improve Chevron's ability to generate strong cash flows. Similarly, opportunistic partnerships and through an acquisition, Merck has made a major COVID-19 push. It acquired Emis, an Austrian private company that develops vaccines. It then also announced a partnership with a global health non-profit company to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, and with another company to develop an oral antiviral drug. All of this happening because the company thought that this was the opportune time to do so. The last point, which is extremely important, is something which Mr. Narayan Murthy also referred to in a way, is engaging with peers, society, regulators, and government is extremely important at this point in time. We should remember it's not about our own company, it's about our industry at this point in time. It's all about collaboration when it's a matter for the industry or safety. There are some sectors which are more regulated than the others to protect consumer and the nation's interest. And it's important for companies in these sectors to work closely with each other, the regulator and the government, to chart out the best possible path that is a win-win for everyone. The regulators focus on providing COVID relief to financial institutions in India, as well as globally, to support the consumers and small businesses, both financially as well as otherwise, has been a result of continuous dialogue and engagement. Luckily, in our country, both the government and the regulators have been carrying this dialogue to ensure that we create the best solutions for the citizens. So here we are. It's time to embrace the new normal, to recover, rebuild, and reimagine. In the end, I would like to quote from the words of Tata. Boldness and open-mindedness have always characterized original thinkers. Again and again, in human history, startling developments have taken place when creative geniuses have turned their back on traditional and orthodox concepts. It has been rightly said that whereas the ordinary mind readily accepts the old and is incredulous of the new, gifted or well-trained mind is receptive to the new and skeptical of the old. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sabharwal, and for all those who have connected here, we have just heard a fantastic masterclass. Well, it was literally, Mr. Sabharwal, right from drinking from a fire hose full blast, and for all those people who are connected here, and this is the new normal. If we had to have a session like this with the 10 nuggets of what Mr. Sabharwal mentioned, right from revisiting priorities, replanning, rebudgeting, and down to engaging with peers, regulators, and governments, to attend a session like this, it would have cost us a fortune. And I guess that is what the new normal is all about. How do we dissipate our knowledge, and how do we kind of share with us the best practices of what one goes through? And for all the corporates who have been here, many of these points would have resounded with them. Aspects of cash flows being more important than margins, and many more. Mr. Sabharwal, there are plenty of questions which have been flowing in, literally a barrage of questions. I'm just running behind time, so I'll just pick up 3 questions, Mr. Sabharwal, and kind of share it with you for your thoughts. The first question, which comes from Ajay Mishra from Mumbai, and this is like straight from the oven of today's paper, and he says, what does it mean for the end consumer now that the RBI panel has plans for allowing business houses into banking, the Tatas, Aditya Birlas, and maybe Bajaj and L&T to follow, allowing NBFCs at asset size of over 50,000 crores to get into it. So what is the new normal here? Is there anything which, with the entry of or the permission of these things, are going to change?
Thank you, Kunal. I would say, I'll cover it in 2 parts. One is the whole fact about our country, what India needs. Mr. Narayan Murthy referred to the fact that we need to create more employment. How does employment get generated? It gets generated if the country does well, the GDP growth is high. If we have to grow at a growth rate of about close to double digits. And that is something which we will need for decades to ensure that everybody gets employment. Then credit has to grow at a rate of close to about 20%. If you look at the size of the Indian economy and the lending market, that 20% growth on that large base can happen only if there are fair number of strong players who can be there to lend in the market. I think the objective of the government and the regulator would be to ensure there are more long-term, credible, strong players who can provide that capital which is required for the growth of the country. This is a process in that direction. The second, which is extremely important and which we've seen it so many times in our life, whether you talk about, the rates, telecom rates, customers get better options only when competition is higher. If you want, better quality service, and if you want service to be delivered at better prices, then competition has to be. I think these are the two aspects which one needs to look at for any industry if they want customers to get better. And I think these are steps in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Sabharwal. And for all the quiz buffs here, the Tatas did have a bank, I think the Tata Industrial Bank way back in 1920s. And then I guess it merged with the Central Bank of India sometime later, post-independence or prior to independence. So the Tatas were in banking once upon a time. Just connecting this to the points which you mentioned during your speech, and you mentioned about 4 key aspects: unharmed, relatively insulated, V-shaped recoveries, and structurally challenged industries or sectors. So there is, I'm just connecting the dots with what Nikhil Sharma, Rudra Mishra, and Saina Anand have asked. How does a new normal that is working from home address each of these? And perhaps they're asking for the retail industry. I guess he must be in the retail industry, and somebody's in the estate industry. How does it work out? How do you see it play out?
So it applies differently for each set of companies. However, one thing which is common is every company across all of these sectors is ensuring that not only can their employees work from home, but the customers can also be serviced at their home. In fact, as I was referring to, there has been a significant amount of investment in technology and digital during this period, and the pace of innovation has also, tremendously increased to allow for these things to happen. I give you the example of what Indian hotels have done in improvement, something which we have never thought of getting the same food which we used to get in iconic restaurants delivered at our home at the precise time at which we want. So, I feel the adoption of this by companies and in fact all companies have also ensured that their employees remain safe and can work from home. In fact, I have rarely come across any instance where any good organization has not created safety even in their offices when employees come. And I have not come across any incident where an employee in office, while being in office, has caught COVID. So it just speaks volumes of what companies are doing to cater to their employees and customers.
Mrs. Sabharwal, that's interesting. And I just connecting to the point which you mentioned of using opportunities to make bold bets, buyouts. Well, this is more of a interesting policy. When I wanted to order Tundai kebab from Lucknow, and that was my favorite food, for all those guys, I'll give my right hand to it. There are some now deliveries which are available. You order in Tundai kebabs in Lucknow and you get it delivered tomorrow in Kolkata. And you're willing to pay a premium for it, right? So new models do emerge. I just take the last question, and this maybe is coming from Amit Kumar Chakravarti. And for all those who I'm seeing plenty of questions, forgive us, we are really out of time. And you have this presentation and this video is going to be uploaded in YouTube, and you can have the link to it. Mr. Sabharwal, this talks about maybe connecting what Mr. Narayan Murthy also said, that finance plays a strategic role for corporates, and more importantly, it is so right for the corporate governance point of view. I think Mr. Murthy alluded a lot about it here. How do you see the corporates playing out in the new normal? I think is coming more from the corporate governance and the facts that you mentioned. Do you see any changes, especially having been the MD and various boards? How do you see it play out?
Governance is something which doesn't change whether we have COVID or we don't have COVID. I think that's in the blood of the organization, that's in the blood of the promoters, or that's in the blood of the management. And it needs to take precedence at all points of time. And I fully endorse what Mr. Narayan mentioned. I think that what has changed in terms of governance during COVID time is if you look at the boards are concerned about the first question, typically which you have when you meet with the board members is, are all employees safe? Are you taking care of your employees? The second thing is how your customers can get service at any point of time and they don't see a disruption during COVID. And I would say the third thing which all boards are looking at is how to ensure continuity of job. That's extremely important. While it is better in such a scenario to take pay cuts rather than look for or ask people to go. So these are some of the things which good boards are looking at to ensure that these difficult times can be managed well so that you can reap the benefits when good times come.
Thank you, Mr. Sabharwal, and for all those connected here, we have just witnessed. I just can't thank you enough, Mr. Sabharwal, and for all of those in the Tata Group, we are more than aware of your leadership skills and the equivalent of the Malcolm Baldrige Business Excellence Model and the way which is being driven in Tata Capital. Thank you very much. And could I request a round of applause for Mr. Sabharwal for the fantastic oration which we have just heard. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sabharwal. Thank you very much, and it is a delight to have had you here. Before I hand it back to Siddhartha, it is time for us to say a big thank you to the Tata Group as well. The Tata Group has been an integral part of the CMA and been with us through the thick and tough times, from the good and all the times we have seen here. And I'm sure when we had this session with Mr. Harish Bhatt last year in a conference hall, and this year when we're having this delivered, I think what a wonderful change which we wouldn't have imagined earlier as well. But for all, I'm sure that whether you're sitting at home at your workplace, the Tata Group would have touched your life, whether it is salt to the cars, or from the tea to the gold, or from watches to trucks. There is some part of your life which is touched by a Tata. A small AV about the Tata Group, and then I give it back to Siddhartha to take forward the proceedings.
In 1968, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are a $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Is about delivering excellence across business sectors. community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. About more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
What a mind-opening session we just now had. And it got our thinking clocks ticking quite hard. Possibilities have been opening up as we were hearing Mr. Sabharwal before our very eyes. And he gave us a wide range of things to pick up, mull over, understand, internalize, and later implement. Thank you so much, Mr. Sabharwal. Thank you, TVS. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the singular pleasure of introducing to you what promises to be a most engaging and invigorating session from three stalwarts from FMCG, healthcare, hospitality, pharma, private equity, and corporate security industries. Let me talk about someone who has a 23-year-old international career spanning 7 countries across the Middle East, UK, and Asia. He has led multicultural teams and excelled in diverse challenges. He brings extensive industry experience across fast-moving consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and healthcare OTC categories with a track record of nurturing and leading high-performance organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Mr. Raghu Krishnan, President and Managing Director, Johnson & Johnson, Philippines.
Thank you, Siddhartha. Just checking whether you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you very much, Calcutta Management Association, for having me on this forum. I'm very honored, I'm humbled, I'm quite happy to share my Philippines experience with you.
Thank you.
I would like to start off with a bit of a disclaimer. We've had a typhoon and a flood last week. Internet has been a bit wonky, so just in case if there is a glitch, please hold on and I'll be back with you soon. Okay, so when the pandemic hit us last year, or early this year in March 2020, right, it was a bit of a blur. And I'm sure none of us probably had the foresight at that point of time that we'll be here at the birth anniversary of COVID, still trying to figure out how do we navigate the future, right? And at that point of time, a lot of people asked me, right, what changed since then? And in my view, almost everything has changed post-lockdown, almost everything, right? And in the first few months, right, and we did very well because all of us took a very defensive mindset, right? And that helped. And like most of you, I also believed this was a passing phase. And we all helped the organization prioritize time. And we said we will ride this over. Now, as months went along, right, we built learnings, and one very critical message started emerging, right? That we had one of the most amazing opportunities that history has ever presented to us, ever, right? And to transform the way we look at future. And this is that one single opportunity we shouldn't let go of. There were enough signs, right? So we have about 3,000 employees in our campus. And they take an approximate of 2 hours every day to And that's equivalent of 375 employees. That's 3,000 working hours saved every day, which is equivalent of 375 employees a day that potentially we can add to our headcount in a way, right? For me, the biggest aha moment was when my supply director went on maternity leave. And immediately we had a supply director from Singapore who just glided in. And she worked for 6 months in our business without meeting any of the team members. She did not see anybody face to face. And when the existing director is back next week, she will glide out. Now, that was fantastic, right? And we couldn't think of this, let's say, a year back. The other thing was that our customers were embracing a digital transformation, right? Much, much faster than we could even cope. For example, we had 3 e-commerce customers, like the Flipkarts or the Amazons in March last year. And by August, I had 22. That was almost 7 times more number of customers, that we had to cope with. 80% of our doctors suddenly moved to telehealth, and they were in some sort of a digital consultation or the other. And it was zero about 8 months back. But we were also seeing pitfalls, right? For example, Zoom fatigue was becoming quite real, right? Working moms, especially the ones with families, were finding it very difficult to cope the demands of managing families, juggling work-life balance, so on and so forth. Our customer interactions were getting very difficult at some point of time, right? Especially our doctor detailing organizations. The teams and individuals, like most of us, we were bouncing off each other's physical energy, and people were starting to lose steam. So they started to crave for human connections. The chit chats before the meetings was missing. The water cooler chats that we all love was missing. And we were moving very business-like, and that was impacting the culture we really stood for. And it all led to what Peter Drucker once said, which is the best way to create future, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And then we sat down at some point of time to create the blueprint for the future. It was becoming very, very clear that we need to look at the entire ecosystem, right? Not just the work alone, right? The work, the workplace, the workforce, and our ways of working, and all needed to be looked at very, very carefully. And it also needs a completely new breed of leadership imperatives, right? For example, we need to look at our org culture, our employee experience, and so on and so forth. So for confidential reasons, I'm not going to share today how we are redesigning the workplace in J&J, but what I'm going to talk about are the principles that will shape the workplace of the future, in my view. And I'm a big, passionate believer that workplace is not, the new workplace is not something that's going to show up in the marketplace. This is something that we have to create. So today I'm going to talk about 5 principles and how we need to connect them to create the blueprint for the future. The first one is what I call as the org design, right? Is it going to be a physical organization? Is it going to be a digital organization? Or is it going to be a hybrid, what we call as phygital organization? Right? And that's where I want to start off the conversation with. This has been the question in everybody's mind, right? How does the organization of the future look like? And as we observe and studied various design architectures, one thing about future was becoming very, very clear, right? We will never go back to the old organization, right? So I see 3 distinct teams emerging, right? The first one is what I call as the old normal, which is the physical, right? Which is, we'll see a version which is quite similar to the low flexibility pre-COVID structures where the teams stayed together in a physical workspace. So these are teams that would predominantly be focused on task execution. They prefer work on-site with shared equipment and tools, access to on-site benefits such as cafeteria, childcare services, and they would enjoy the delineation of home from work life, right? And some of the teams will need to have this old setup for sure, right? Like for example, we believe some of our shared services organization or parts of our finance teams that need a lot of interactions with manual invoice processing, or for example, parts of our supply organizations, which have external connects. So we still believe that they will still stay within the old normal, what I call it. The complete opposite of this is what I call as the total flex or the 100% digital organizations, right? And they will be a fluid network of teams, right? And they're comfortable in hybrid work environments. They practice total work flex across hours, locations, and work models. Right? So some teams would be more comfortable in gliding into the structure. For example, digital organizations, e-commerce, customer-facing teams, innovation teams. So they'll be much more comfortable in this total flex or total autonomy, or what I call as the 100% digital organization. The benefits are very clear, right? You would see increased morale, improved work-life balance, instilling the trust, making them accountable means very clearly you would see better initiative, better innovation. Flexibility in meeting customers means definitely better customer satisfaction, so on and so forth. And this also helps us expand our talent pool. For example, the whole flex mindset means we can hire anyone from any geography, any time zones, so on and so forth. However, the large part of our organization would still be what I call as a phygital structure, half digital and half physical structures, where you work across the traditional functional structures, yet have a choice of where and when you work. Right? So you focus on outputs and outcomes and not necessarily clock and co-location, etc. And this also feeds into what our employees are already telling us. And 2/3 of our employees feel that the role of an office in future is going to be for special meetings like town halls or human connections or socializing, brainstorming, or creating connections with company culture. So the whole purpose of office itself is changing in the eyes of some of our employees. The benefits are significant here, right? Infrastructure savings, because you're reducing office occupancy. So we eventually use office as an enabling collaborative environment. So the remote roles means you get access, as I explained, to a wide talent profile. Right? I explained to you the case of my supply director who operated out of Singapore and ran Philippines. The interesting thing here is, while we fix the various org designs of the future, it's very important to keep an eye on the culture, right? And that brings me to my second point, which is, how do we create a culture? How do we create those cultural interventions that support the new org designs, right? For example, we need to have a very deliberate approach to a virtual first culture. Now, our cultures, most org cultures are currently not tuned to a virtual first culture. So we need to design those nudges, those interventions, and those behavioral changes and mindset shifts to create a very innovative, motivated, and passionate working community. We know that a lot of our employees still feel very guilty about working from home, right? And so we need to create that guilt-free work culture. How do we create a campaign around encouraging our teams to be guilt-free? How do we create hybrid playbooks? For example, most of our playbooks are suited for an office workspace, right? So when we move to new hybrid conditions, how do we create new hybrid playbooks? How do we create a shared language? How do we reimagine onboarding experience for new employees, right? And we know it's quite complex to integrate new employees into the structure. How do we recreate the water cooler conversations, which are quite essential part of corporate fabric? And HR also needs to catch up here, in performance planning. For example, how do we manage unconscious bias. Like, for example, if I'm an employee who is operating on a virtual setting and my peer and my boss are working on a on-site scenario, there is definitely work to be done to mitigate a proximity bias, for example. So there is clearly work to be done around culture, and culture without a cultural intervention, without an org design, could prove quite fatal here. The next thing I want to talk about is about leadership, right? And I believe that leaders of tomorrow need to have a very different DNA to the leaders of the pre-COVID era, right? And I believe the traits that we need to see as we go along are adaptable, resilient, decisive, yet compassionate and empathetic. And as you know, the workplace that we have now is probably an outcome of 100 plus years of evolution. And we cannot really expect that as we walk into a post-COVID era, everything is going to be perfect, right? We'll go through a trial and error approach. The leaders have to be adaptable to these changes. They should be willing and curious to learn and to be able to take setbacks and bounce back quickly. At the same time, they also need to be brave and bold to be able to take decisions. The other thing I want to talk about is also that as organizations move towards a collaborative hybrid space, empathy and compassion takes the center stage. Now, for example, think about a hard conversation you have with one of your employees in an office space, and imagine the same conversation taking place over Zoom when the employee is in her home and it is her personal space. The same conversation in two different mediums can elicit completely different reactions, right? So the most important thing I'm talking about here is it is not about the senior leaders, the managing directors or the CEOs. How do we build that leadership skills across a wide range of managerial levels in the organization? The fourth thing I want to talk about is the outside-in perspective, right? How do we stay close to our consumers and customers, right? And why is it important? As much as we are trying to change, everyone out there is also trying to change, right? And that moving piece makes it very difficult for us to navigate. For example, right, Johnson & Johnson makes baby products. Till 9 months or till 10 months back, our consumers wanted baby care products that were gentle. Now, all of a sudden, fast forward, now they want protection. Now, the question is, what do we do? Now, do we make small tweaks to our brand strategies? Do we completely reinvent the brand strategies? Do we make large brand pivots? So every decision has obviously investment choices and hence repercussions. We have a pharmaceutical business which was predominantly built on doctor detailing. Now the question is, now doctors are not seeing patients, nor are they seeing the medical representatives, right? So how do we change? How do we embrace telehealth platforms? Or, for example, some of the hospitals and clinics are taking the treatment to the patient's homes, like chemo infusions, etc. Right? How do we partner with them? So where do we lead and where do we follow? Because every choice needs resources and money to be spent. So the key here is it's very important as we pivot to the future that we need to double down our eyes and ears on the ground. And I would even go on to say that leaders should spend as much time as possible during these times to get an outside-in perspective. Last but not the least, I also want to talk about technology. Now, for employees to thrive in a new hybrid environment, they need to have access to a wide ecosystem of technology, right? That enables the connected ways of working, which means we need to take stock of everything, right? Existing hardware, technology, software, to deal with the emerging ways of working requirements. There is also a need to beef up things like, for example, cloud computing technologies, right? Cloud computing strengths, or making sure the network connectivity and speed of all employees are good, cyber security becomes super important in a post-COVID era. The other interesting thing is, while we navigate these challenges, we also need to have a long, hard look at our processes. Like quite recently, there was a typhoon here in Manila about 2 weeks back. And then we realized our business continuity process or the BCP process, etc., we're all geared towards an era where all employees were on site. So, and that again tells us that we might need to completely reinvent new playbooks. To sum up, we need to not just look at one small element of reinvention, we need to look at the entire ecosystem and connect them in such a way that we get maximum benefit out of it. And as I come to the end of my session, I would like to go back to where I started in my first slide, which is the best way to create or to predict future is to create it, right? So we have one of the most amazing opportunities that history has presented for us to transform the way we look at future. And now is the time, ladies and gentlemen, to lead with a bold vision and reimagine the future. Thank you very much.
May we request Mr. Krishnan to please be with us, as there are two other speakers who's going to join him right now. And the next speaker, whom I have the honor to introduce, has received the coveted Corporate Hotelier of the World award because he has closely observed and shaped the changing contours of the service industry in India over the last 4 decades. Given his brief in sustainable practices for a better world, he pioneered responsible luxury concept and has steered ITC hotels into the big league globally in nurturing green buildings, executing policies that have enriched the environment. As a result, ITC Hotels today is the largest chain of hotels in the world, which has the maximum number of LEED Platinum certified properties. The industry sees him as a trailblazer in sustainability, a thought leader who believes that businesses do not succeed in societies that have failed. His work is a testimony to his unflinching commitment to tourism, an engine of national growth, meeting national priorities. He has played a pivotal role in integrating this industry into the country's economic framework. He is in charge of hospitality, travel, and tourism businesses of ITC and has been entrusted with the mantle of fructifying the company's expansion plans for ITC hotels, catering to different segments of the market mix. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Nakul Anand, Executive Director, ITC. The next speaker that I would like to introduce leads a small but energetic and effective team that develops strategic planning and brand building, especially for challenger brands in competitive situations. It was under his stewardship that Britannia became the #1 food brand in India and figured in the Forbes magazine list of 300 best small companies in the world for 3 years. It was the only food and FMCG company from India on this list. He oversaw the successful execution of development of Horlicks as a challenger brand in biscuits. He was a finalist in the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award 2002. He's on the board of United Breweries and Indophil Industries, as well as Vikas Ecotech. He's advisor to AXA and was a member of the Prasar Bharati Board, India. He's on the executive committee of FICCI. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Mr. Sunil Alagh, founder, SKA Advisors Private Limited, and of course, the former MD and CEO, Britannia Industries. Now, while they talk, many of you will have questions for the speakers. Please put them in the chat box. Our IT team will pick them up from there. May I now request Mr. Sunil Alagh to take over the business session of the Calcutta Management Summit. Mr. Alagh, please.
Mr. Alagh, you're on mute, Mr. Alagh.
Unmuting is...
No, again,
okay, unmuted. Thank you.
Now, I'd like to request Nakul, Anand, before I give the valedictory address and then get into the Q&A. So, Nakul, please go ahead and finish what you have to say for about 15 minutes, and then maybe I'll just give the valedictory address and then we get into the Q&A.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Siddharth. And as it's always an honor to be here, there is so much to be said in 15 minutes that normally I would speak extempo, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity of missing out on something, and therefore I've come with a written script, and I hope it makes sense to you. Allow me to begin with your permission. A suspension bridge was built in Choluteca, Honduras. The bridge was originally constructed in 1930 and rebuilt in 1996. The government, knowing the bridge was likely to face extreme weather conditions, commissioned some of the best architectural minds in the world to build a bridge that could withstand high winds and hurricanes that plagued the region. Sure enough, in 1998, Honduras was hit by Hurricane Mitch that devastated the Caribbean. Honduras was wrecked, roads were wiped out. However, the bridge stood its ground and survived in near perfect condition. The bridge stood its ground, but the storm caused the river to carve a completely new path, which no longer ran under the bridge. The Choluteca bridge no longer stood over the river, rendering it essentially useless, a bridge to nowhere that became irrelevant. Such is the rule of business. Such is the rule of nature. While we think we have aced the game, the rule changes. The tenacity in our planning and the astuteness of our self-proclaimed business algorithms crumble to the unforeseeable. The storm that altered the course of the river is akin to our current pandemic, resulting in the world facing its first ever economic fallout since the Depression of 1929. The sudden spread and severity of the pandemic across the globe has pushed countries and institutions into uncharted territory. Never in modern history have countries had to ask citizens around the world to stay home, curb travel, and keep physical distance. Lenin rightly said, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. The world now has a much sharper definition of what constitutes a black swan event. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, members of the Calcutta Management Association, students, colleagues, and friends across. Great to know that we are interacting on such a large scale. I'm honored to have this opportunity to share a few thoughts with you on the new normal, the next normal for the hotel and tourism industry. Opinions are ripples on the surface, shallow and easily changed. Attitudes are the currents below the surface, deeper and stronger. Values are the deep tides. They are slow to change, yet powerful. It is this value change, in this case caused by the pandemic, that causes a seismic shift, necessitating a reset of priorities. These shifts affect the very foundation of any industry, making its impact felt in every aspect, be it product, be it experience. Incredible minds, however, will find a silver lining in the darkest cloud. Remember, a future unwritten is a future of opportunity, and uncertain times are catalysts for reimagination. Black Death ended federalism and serfdom. World War II made US the most powerful nation. 9/11 reshaped transportation and security policies worldwide. 26/11 reshaped hotel security. 2003 SARS attitude changed the attitude towards shopping in China. There was a surge in online shopping. The global meltdown of 2008 and 2009 led to the birth of the sharing economy. Ladies and gentlemen, when values change, questions have to be asked, rules rewritten, and mindsets changed. We stand at the threshold of a new normal, witnessing the birth of a society with an unaccustomed relationship to the community and a new tryst with humanity. Health and hygiene become paramount, ushering in a new era of hotel service with low, no-touch, contact light-size sanitized protocols that converge with social and physical distancing, safe distancing to establish a new norm. The new normal is built on the foundation of health and safety. The pandemic has shifted health and safety from a buying preference to a mandatory requirement, from reactive to proactive. Hygiene and safety are front and center And this emphasis on health has transformed the way the hospitality industry, for that matter, any industry, is evolving. Travelers will opt for hotels that provide enhanced wellness-focused amenities that center around holistic well-being, digital and low-touch, sleep, fitness, and nutrition. As people have had more time to reflect being at home, they have also realized that we cannot be individually well in a world that is unwell. It is a global order that has amplified the concern for sustainability, the concern for planet Earth. Any effort to save the planet ultimately equates to saving ourselves. Hotels will now have to redefine and repurpose their spaces, places, and experiences arising from this dual concern of distancing and disinfecting, striking the right balance of connect and space and create experiences that reduce anxiety and enhance well-being. Guests want a sense of freedom with personal controls as they fear confronting situations they cannot control. The shift towards a contactless guest experience has spread like wildfire. COVID-19 has greatly popularized contactless technology due to increasing awareness about the possible risks that can be linked to physical contact and touch. That is why brands are exploring hand-free guest experiences, contactless bookings, contactless payments, contactless check-ins, in-room voice assistants, and accepting contactless feedback. Moving to contactless technology and services does bring in consumer reassurance. They want to be assured of our safety at every step of the way, especially in travel accommodations like hotels and vacation rentals. Keyless entry, smart sensor-operated technology, and limiting contact between guests and staff are a few of the many examples that are a testament to the rise of a contactless technology in travel and travel and tourism sector. Guests and associate touchpoints are being reimagined, from sensor-based elevators to vending machines to adjustments in ventilation. Combating COVID has unleashed the fastest innovations in technology, and I emphasize that keep us distant in order to keep us close. Clean has emerged as the most important word from the dictionary. Hotels have turned into cleanliness theaters, greater demand for hygienic transparency. It is not enough just to eliminate the germs. You also have to eliminate anxiety by making the invisible visible. Sanitized cleanliness is the new differentiator, and cleanliness has become the new amenity. Cleanliness, cleanliness, cleanliness has replaced location, location, location. Going forward, most elements and areas will continue to be designed with minimum human contact and drive guests to enjoy the spaces through a digital experience of visual sense. Use of robots in housekeeping, automated entry systems, one-card identification systems, sensor-led lighting systems may see higher integration in hotel-safe designs. We need to design hotel interiors that interact with guests in new ways and offer an environment that will cater not only to their desire for rest and relaxation, but also to their overall health and well-being. Antibacterial switches, paints, and even fabric, cleaner lines, and increase clean fresh air. Winston Churchill once said, "We shape buildings, thereafter they shape us." We need designs that support ventilation, sunlight, soil, and water management, as the buildings we live in and work in have an impact on us, and we need to develop and manage them in tune with the more responsible use of the world's natural resources. It is imperative we create spaces that appeal aesthetically and systematically to all five senses and not just the visual. Biophilic designs that bring the inside out and the outside in. The moment of truth would become what I call a moment of trust. It is about trusting a brand and what the brand would do for me. Trust will be the new currency in the new normal and the next normal. ITC Hotels We Assure program illustrates this well. This initiative is our commitment towards health, hygiene, and safety, designed in collaboration with medical professionals and disinfection experts to further enhance the existing hygiene and cleaning protocols. We have inculcated elevated hygiene protocols, state-of-the-art technology, advanced disinfectants as recommended by WHO and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare across all touchpoints for guest safety and well-being. At ITC Hotels, the hygiene and safety protocol sets in even before the guest arrives at the airport, right from the safe car promise where all vehicles undergo stringent daily deep cleaning protocols with accredited service antimicrobials to chauffeurs undergoing regular temperature checks. Safe distancing is facilitated with demarcated floor signs inside the hotel. The new contactless check-in and check-out procedures, coupled with advanced sanitization methods deployed in guest limousine services and baggage duly tagged as Sanitagged, provide guests added reassurance. The front desk has been equipped with protective screens for safety and express check-ins and encouraged to reduce time spent on arrival. Assurance of a door seal on guest rooms indicative of zero access after all safety procedures and stringent deep cleaning has been done. Room cleaning and servicing is carried out only in the presence of in-room guests by trained housekeeping staff wearing personal protective equipment. Advanced technologies like misting, steam cleaning, and more are facilitated to achieve clinically clean standards. Contactless in-room dining experience is enabled through a specially designed serviceware and an enhanced service model through e-menus supported with the option of digital billing via online payment. The Knock and Drop program offers carefully selected cuisine options at the guest's doorstep, dropped with zero contact in customized packaging. Restaurant layouts and seating arrangements have been remodeled to maintain safe distancing. Separators guide guests towards safe dining with tables and chairs being duly sanitized after every use. Service associates adhere to stringent safety norms and hygiene protocols. All crockery, cutlery, glassware is sanitized and packed in food-grade covers for protection. Digital menus ensure low contact. Adding to responsible hospitality, associates and managers have been trained for hygiene certification in respect of FSSAI regulatory guidelines, cleaning and disinfection near to hospital grade, and control and monitoring of food safety and hygiene standards. The pandemic has catalyzed some changes which had already set into motion in hospitality. Buffets have had the last supper. The big fat Indian wedding has gone on a diet, and fine dining is no longer fine. At the fitness centers, safe distancing is encouraging through remodeled layouts and controlled use of every alternative equipment. ITC's signature laundry service, Lavendria, uses enhanced wash cycles and antibacterial detergents. Wash temperatures are maintained at 70 degrees Celsius. The good old day key drop box makes a comeback for guests who wish to deposit their keys, which are used only after sanitization. The world has never needed more assurance. Enhanced focus on distancing and disinfection, leading to rooms rested for 72 hours to navigate in contactless space. In-room minimalization, hygiene excellence, and remember, everyone is today a housekeeper. A word of caution, low-touch service must never be allowed to contaminate service. Aptly stated by Daniel Mayer in his book, Setting the Table, The Transforming Power of Hospitality in Business. He says that when we are born, we get 4 gifts: eye contact, smile, a hug, and some food. This is also the very foundation of hospitality. Fortunately, even in the new normal, 3/4 of this is still possible. We can deliver the human touch without necessarily the touch of a human. Service can and must always touch the heart. At the core of great service lies an endearing experience. Service should seldom be heard, seldom seen, never touched, yet always felt with heartfelt compassion and empathy. There cannot be a better example than a humble namaste. I quote from a piece I wrote titled Ode to Service in the New Normal. With heartfelt compassion and empathy, amply proven, yet harking back to the beginning of time itself, rooted in a touching, contactless gesture that has stood the testimony of time, physical proximity notwithstanding. The namaste, a gesture of supreme respect. The namaste, silent yet powerful, distant yet connected, embodying within itself oneness of the soul. Delighted to receive you yet again. The warmth of our eyes will reach you with the smile of our eyes, which I call smiles. I now move to a broader subject. How can Indian tourism reinvent itself in this pandemic? Remember, every storm or disaster brings with it seeds of opportunities. However, this opportunity is perishable and only those who can capture it would be gainers. Moving to India, to take one step forward, we need to take one step backward. In our past lies our future. Our ancient traditional practices based on tried, tested, and trusted tripod could address all modern day concerns arising from the pandemic and thus become a new beacon of light for a buoyant tourism India as the global seat of yoga and Ayurveda to live and survive in surplus and sufficiency. Isn't it amazing that India's science of Ayurveda and yoga practiced this proactive discipline 5,000 years ago? Our past was future ready and embedded best practices and techniques that boost physical immunity and mindfulness by integrating the timeless tradition of Vedic wisdom in our DNA. Today, the world acknowledges that following yoga and Ayurveda principles of healthy living is a great proactive tool to safeguard oneself against the physical and mental distress. Ayurveda has always promoted the preventive healthy living practices through daily and seasonal regime, focusing on diets, active boosting immunity, rather depending on the reactive approach of modern Medicare using antiviral or antibiotics. Indian civilization is essentially spiritual and is based on rational speculation in harmony with the nature. In the Vedas, which are the earliest literary record of sacred knowledge, the documented practices of well-being for both human and nature are more apt in the current scenario than ever, making it truly symbiotic, scientific, and sustainable in modern times. Your body is a miniature universe. Whatever is the microcosm is also the macrocosm. Hygiene, physical distancing, isolation have been mentioned as an essential part of the daily living ritual in practices of yoga. Many of these things being promoted now worldwide as new norms of living to avoid being affected by corona were the usual norms during the Vedic period as very strict norms of hygiene were followed. We are now being told not to touch our eyes, nose, without washing our hands. In Manu Smriti it is written, without a reason, do not touch your indriyas. Indians' kitchens, mostly referred to as the Indian pharmacy, signifies the importance of Indian cuisine in healthy eating and its healing food properties and endorses the Hippocratic quote of let food be thy medicine, otherwise medicine will become thy food. Indian cuisines always emphasize on local fresh and seasonal ingredients, focusing on local immunity and well-being. The vast knowledge bank created by our ancestors can be the Arth Shastra to reimagine incredible India. This is our intellectual heirloom. Create experiences that reduce anxiety, enhance well-being, own the space, bring the world to experience and learn, create opportunities, forums, camps, and expose the world to our rich knowledge while infusing all this into our current tourism treasure trove. In essence, tourism can certainly be the engine of economic revival for India using this approach. Human is the miniature of nature and must learn to live in harmony. This is the essence of Indian Vedic civilization, where each entity supports the existence of others. This is India's moment to become incredible again. Thank you.
Great, Nakul. I mean, I was thinking, but I haven't got a written speech like yours. I am just going to I made some notes whilst Narayan Murthy was speaking and whilst you were speaking and whilst Raghu was speaking. But the trouble with me is that I'm coming in at a time of lunch when everybody is very eager to get down to eating. And therefore, I have decided that from my experience, I will just put a few points which may provoke people to ask some questions. Look, I mean, being a Punjabi, don't expect any thought-provoking speech from me because as a Punjabi, we are known for action. My mother was a Sardarni, my father was a Hindu Punjabi. And therefore, don't expect any thought-provoking speech. You leave a Punjabi with a thought, and when you meet him the next time, he'll say, sir, you left something behind, please take it away. And being born and brought up in Calcutta, I thought I'll add a little bit of humor. You leave a Bengali with a thought, and he'll make a philosophy out of it. But that apart, what I am going to say on this is that, look, for me, the most important from the Indian point of view is demand creation. And therefore, very little has been done by the government or by most companies other than offering large discounts on either like Amazon and everything else to get people to buy. And I don't think it's sustainable because many hotels have also, like what Nakul has mentioned, have reduced their rates to maybe 8,000 or 9,000 or 10,000 in the hope that people will come in. But this cannot be sustainable. You will have to get back very soon into charging the kind of rates that you charged earlier. And therefore, I am going to say that there is no such thing as the new normal. Most people are fed up of this term that I speak with, and they want to go back to the old normal. The new normal, which we are referring to, might be there for another 2 years. But the urge of people to go back to what they were used to is very, very sustainable. Now, look, apart from a couple of areas like hygiene, which will bring about a change, or information technology where you can work from home, everybody else is itching to get out of the house and get back to work. The only thing that they might bring about is flexible hours of working and not work from home constantly, other than a couple of R&D people who can work from home, women who are expecting can work from home, IT can work from home, but the bulk of FMCG and everybody else wants to meet people. And therefore, I turn around and say there's no such thing as the new normal, which will be sustained. It's the old normal. And that is where people will be heading after 2 years. And we must prepare ourselves, barring a few industries. And I also find, as Noah Harari has said, that from the Indian point of view, is artificial intelligence and IT moving too fast? I will tell you why. Because are we creating a class of people that are going to be useless, totally useless in other coming years? Because IT and all the big companies are looking at reducing costs, replacing it with artificial intelligence, and then getting more and more people out of work rather than at work. And in India, where you have a large population, employment is going to be very, very important. Otherwise, you are heading for a revolution, regardless of whatever the new normal is or the new abnormal is. And therefore, we must worry about how do we create more employment rather than less. And that is very, very important, because you have to learn to simplify issues and speak a language that people can understand. And I'm not talking about necessarily all the intellectuals that are attending this conference and everything else. You must learn to simplificate rather than complicate. Because if you complicate life and you lose your sense of humor, you are heading for a big, big problem, especially in countries like India and China, because we have a huge population which is growing. You have Europe and America, where the population is declining and the older lot are becoming more and more there. And it's the younger lot which are not there. And therefore, they are going to rely on China and India to move forward. And therefore, that's what's important for us. And remember that the new generation is coming with no baggage at all. You know, I was traveling to a small village before COVID in Tamil Nadu, and I was asking people who were youngsters, 20 years old, 21 years old, because they are the future. I said, if you got 1 lakh of rupees in a village, and that's it, it's not going to be recurring, you just won a lottery for 1 lakh, what would you spend it on? And the top 3 things which came out, and a lot of you can also think about it, was a telephone. Why a mobile phone? Because they were not looking for an Apple or anything else. Most of us seem to be addressing our issues to the rich, to the upper middle. I just want a phone which I can provide an SMS, I can talk to the other person, that's enough for me to come. And therefore, it is important for people like Micromax and all, which came in many years ago. And I'm talking to the owner saying, look, what he saw as an issue maybe 10, 15 years ago was people going to the toilet in the evening or at night and carrying a lantern in one hand in the villages and the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And so what he did was that in his phone, he put a torch. He said, look, you don't have to carry a big lantern in your hand, carry your torch. And that's what Micromax became. Now, the problem is that he has to now again look for opportunities in India and move forward on that. And therefore, that's very, very important. The second thing they wanted was a television set. Why did they want a television set? Was for sheer entertainment. Let me tell you, India is not going to become a rich or even a medium rich country in the next 6 to 7 years. The bulk of the population is going to be poor, and therefore you have to worry about them as to how are you going to give them everything that is there and that is necessary. And that's what for me is the most important. The third thing they said, believe it or not, and these were across men and women, all youngsters, and they said, we want to buy a pair of jeans. And everything was rationalized and reasonable, and there was a reason. They said, I want to buy a pair of jeans, not a Levi's, not a YSL, not anything on top. They wanted to buy jeans at 500 rupees. And I think there was a company at that time called Cable Jeans or something. And he put in right at 500 rupees because they said, I don't have to wash it. I can wear it and I can be trendy. Understand where the new consumer is going. I mean, and I don't mean for Johnson & Johnson or for Nakul because all your hotels are geared at a certain level. I'm talking at a national level, and that is very, very important for people to start looking at. Therefore, how do you sustain the growth that has happened in the last 2 to 3 months? Because you have given huge discounts. Demand has gone up because there was a pent-up demand. Festival season, yes. Biscuits have been growing right in the beginning because people wanted a hygienic product, and therefore they grew. Certain soaps, certain deodorants have grown, but that's for a specific reason. Right now, the oil in the engine is what is going to be provided by the 300 million middle class, which is the lower middle and the middle class, because very little is done for them to incentivize them to spend. And if there is no spending, then let me tell you, all the efforts being made is going to come to zero because no industry will want to produce unless there is a demand. And therefore, just giving loans on the supply side is okay. It is necessary, but a balancing of the demand side is what I have been fighting for with the government. And hopefully, you have to take care of the poor first. They've taken care of the poor. You have to take care of agriculture because that is what the country wants. And now the middle income group feels left out in all this. Why are they going to spend? Apart from trust, what Nakul has raised, apart from the point that Johnson & Johnson has said about what Raghav has said about how to build a new structure. Look, all that is going to collapse if there is very little demand, especially in India. And that is the same for the world. Look, technology is moving at a pace where I agree with Noah. And if you create a whole class of people, so therefore maybe technology works in the West, but you have to tailor your business to us. And that's very, very important, what we need to do for India, which is first. And therefore, maybe providing some food which they can order on email at low cost, making hotels which are available at 500 and 1,000. I'm just thinking out of the box right now. And you have to take care of what gives you your bread and butter. But the future will lie in India, which is where you deal with people. And I remember, look, we have to start thinking totally afresh. I started with nothing in my life, and as somebody said, I still have most of it. That should be the motto. Look, people, their wives, the family, what have I learned in this COVID thing is that, look, family is to come first. Work is okay. Money is okay. You have to earn it to get certain basic points across. But how do you get people to respect family, to love family, and to get into the fact that, look, health is more important than wealth, and that becomes most important for us. You know, Arsene Wenger, now that I'm talking to Calcutta people, they love football. He was the coach for Arsenal, and he has come up with saying, forwards love to win because they have to score goals. The defenders hate to lose because they have to defend a goal. Maybe that will be the motto for the future. Nobody wants to get into the game and say, I was in the game because of sportsmanship. That only the losers say. The winners have to start, the forwards will have to move forward, and the defenders will have to defend. And therefore, we will have to strike a balance, is what I would suggest to all. And that is the most important thing that I have written down. And above all this, never lose your sense of humor. I've gone through major ups and downs in my life, and as individuals and as small people and as the poor lot, look, you will go through a lot of trouble, a lot of hassles. Never lose a sense of humor. There are people who are working for you. The government is working for, and I'm sure the post-COVID thing will be how to sustain a demand that is lying idle. And that's what I would like to ask, and maybe some questions and answers can come about from that. Siddharth, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Some questions may have been forwarded to you. If you can
me? Okay.
look at your WhatsApp.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to do that right now. Sorry. I'm tech challenged. Huh? Don't forget that. Somebody had to help me right now to unmute.
Mr. Alagh, I could help you
now
out.
Now I'm on WhatsApp. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a question for the example of, are there such bridges as you, for Nakul, you talked about a bridge in Honduras, and in the retail, FMCG and hotel industry, are there such bridges still around?
Sorry, I think the point that I was trying to make was a metaphorical point, that the bridge didn't serve the purpose at all. That nature changed the course of the river. The bridge was built so strong, right, but it wasn't required forever. That's one more point. But the major point was that the course of it changed. The bridge was useless because there was no river below it anymore. And that's exactly what happens. That's when the world changes. This could happen by nature. This could happen due to technology advancements. This could happen due to, there are organizations that have become history today, or dinosaurs today, for the same reason that they didn't change. And there are some which are victims of changes in the situation that it took place here. Let me give you an example. One of the first real examples of mass customization in the hotel industry was the buffet. It doesn't exist today, right? Fine dining was considered to be fine. Today, you don't want fine dining because it involves a number of contacts between you and the server. Comes back, yes, it will come back, but at this point or the other. But, you know, as Sunil said, I think that where we are today is what is called the new normal. There will finally be something called the next normal. And there will be some hangover from here that will move in there. And that's what we've got to look in. The concern, health is the new wealth, Sunil rightly said, that's not going to go away. People's eating habits are going to change. People attending large functions would be less often than that. The fear of infection would always remain there. You would get, you would disinfect more and more. That's all I had to say. But I think the bridge was just a metaphor that I used to say how situations change and how you have to then change with it.
You know, I'd just like to add what Nakul has said is that, look, let's not frighten each other over what's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years is what Nakul is trying to say. There are going to be changes that you don't have to get frightened by it, and you have to add to your strengths rather than replacing all your strengths. The same engineers that built the bridge can now be used for something else. Don't think that the bridge is the end. It's the people who built the bridge who are given a task. Now give new tasks to the same people and they'll come up with new bridges or a new everything else. Maybe Nakul, have I said it right or not? Whatever you were trying to say.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, Mr. Krishnan, what a question for you is, how did you manage transition in Philippines? Did you see any cultural shift between countries which you led your business in?
So the transition is specific to COVID or
No, well, they're talking about your culture. When you said culture is an important part, they are saying, how did you manage? Was there any cultural shift that you had to manage?
Yeah, I think
when you went to various countries?
Yeah, for sure, right? I think I start with the premise that most of when you cut through countries, right? You would see that fundamentally there is a lot of similarities and there are differences, right? And I always believe we focus on the similarities and not so much on the differences. You need to be aware of the differences, but not so much on focus on the differences. And I fundamentally believe that transfer of skills, the basic leadership traits, right? Your problem-solving skills, the ability to work with people, and those are timeless values, and they stay true, irrespective of cultures, right? The key is the tweaks you do as a leader when you cut across cultures and how that manifests. Like Philippines, for example, it's a country where there are deep-rooted values. It's a Catholic country, and people are religious, and so you just be aware of those cultural traits, but fundamentally, you start with the premise that everybody is the same in that sense.
Yeah, great. Nakul, there's another question for you, which says, do you feel your welcome group will reach the heights post-COVID-19 as it was before, because you have created a huge workforce in the past? Are you going to reduce your workforce? What do you plan to do?
No, I'm an optimist, Sunil, and I think in the next normal, I think there's a very big difference when people say, okay, let's take leisure travel. Leisure travel is absolutely going to boom. There are people on revenge holidays, leisure hotels they've never seen, the good times that they've seen now. And many Indians wonder that why didn't we do this earlier? Remember, if there are 11 million people who come to India every year, there are 27 million Indians who go out. Right? Many of them wouldn't have seen beyond 2 or 3 cities, etc. So there's a great potential in business as far as that is concerned, domestic. As far as business, people say that yes, there is going to be work from home, this and that, habits are going to change, people are not going to travel, etc., etc. I think that, remember, this is a generation that has worked with each other, right? We can today work from remote places because Sunil and I have worked with each other. If we didn't know each other at all, it wouldn't have been easy, right? And therefore, going forward, I don't think this is a sustainable thing. I myself have worked from home and worked from office, felt very comfortable working from home, thinking that I've now mastered technology. I, like Sunil, was tech challenged and suddenly realized that I could switch between a Wi-Fi and get into a dongle, and I'd never heard of such terms before, etc., right? But when I did go back to office, I realized it's different. The output is far more, etc. So I'm a great believer. Travel is going to come back. Business travel is going to come back. Leisure travel is going to come back or going to grow. There are newer opportunities that are going to come. India can position itself very well. I did mention to you that all the concerns, and I did mention to you that the opportunity that exists for India, all the concerns that the COVID has brought up were practiced in India 5,000 years ago, right? The Ayurveda, the food, the yoga, the health, it was part of our everyday life, etc. If India was to position itself as the platform for this and look at regional, look at the regional countries only, forget long haul, you won't know what to do. You'll have your hotels absolutely full from all sides. So in other words, I'm a great optimist. I think that not only will we maintain this workforce, we may have to take in more, and the industry is certainly going to grow.
No, Nakul, you're absolutely right. I think I'll just about close now, if it's okay, because it's almost 1:40 exactly, 1:41 or 1:42. And I would just want to close with one particular line that I have written out, that if passion drives you, then reason must hold its reins. Remember that always in your life, because everyone has talked about having passion, having this, but reason must hold its reins depending upon the country that you're in, like Catholic country, where so that for them becomes, I'm sure, Nakul, the Prime Minister, what you're saying, wonders. But remember, you have to have reason for everything that you do. You have to survive, not just for the 1 to 2 years. You have to make a sustained model which will take forward, and always remember that people would love to meet people, and that's an essential part. And I would like to hand over to Siddhartha now. Siddhartha, you go ahead and close the whole thing, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Krishnan. Thank you, Mr. Anand. And thank you, Sunil, for what a wonderful session that you gave us. It was a pleasure hearing you and learning from you. It's been an honor to have all of you together on the same platform for the CMA. May I now invite our treasurer, CMA's treasurer, Mr. Anil Garg, to deliver the formal vote of thanks. Anil Garg, please. Mr. Anil Garg.
Mr. Garg, if you could unmute yourself.
So thank you. As we come to the end of a most engaging session with a galaxy of speakers, it is my duty to thank all our well-wishers, our sponsors who supported us in this difficult time with their resources, financial and much more. Tata Sons, ITC Limited, West Bengal Industrial Development Corporation, the Telegraph, the IIHM and Eduguy team, Adamas University, Century Ply, CESC Limited, Caring Minds, Sister Nivedita University, Heritage Business School, IISWBM, JIS University, Friends FM, Selvel, Calcutta Business School, and Squash Code. And of course, our speakers, Mr. Narayan Murthy, Mr. Rajiv Sabharwal, Mr. Sunil Alagh, Mr. Nakul Anand, Mr. Raghu Krishnan, who have shared their invaluable thoughts with us. And you, the participants, who have spent valuable time with us over the weekend. And over and above this, the backbone, the unseen part of the entire event, the IT teams who have worked tirelessly, working endlessly day and night to make this happen with such elegance and seamlessness. And I should not forget to thank a person, our ex-director of CMA, Mr. Ramin Barua, who has retired recently, except who was also deeply involved, despite his impending retirement, in stitching up this event under the new normal, as we call it. Have a great weekend, and thank you very much once again. I now hand you over to Sanchari.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we finally draw to an end to this extremely knowledgeable and great insightful annual summit by the Calcutta Management Association, and we are certain it has been a great takeaway for our audience. We were privileged to be a part of this conclave, and at the outset, we would like to express our gratitude towards all our esteemed dignitaries, our guests for their valuable presence, all our eminent speakers, our valuable sponsors, and most definitely our wonderful audience. There was a huge support across the social handles today where we streamed live, and it was truly encouraging. Wishing everyone a very, very pleasant evening ahead and looking forward to welcoming all of you next year once